There it is.
Well, I guess we're live. What's up, everybody? I'm Dustin from TrackDaz, talking motorbikes episode tonight with Captain Hurley.
Yeah. Hello. Salutations.
Yeah, so I've seen you all over social media and you know, TikTok and Instagram, and you have all these things to say about the mistakes riders are making or trying to get sponsorship, and it's something that kind of hits a little close to home because being a club racer dummy myself, yeah, just like everyone, we're always trying to figure out a way to get some kind of sponsor. And by the way, really quick, I got to text Hawk Mazzotta to leave me alone. Hang on, hey, dude, I'm on YouTube.
Watch the live here. Send link.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, so oh look, Chris
Hey,
Simcoe from
Chris.
Pin the Gas is on. Look at that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your background. Yeah, I mean, when did you get into this? When did you get into motorbikes? Let's talk about that.
Well, so super quick abridged version. My mom had married a gentleman who was really into the whole action sports scene. He actually was an MMA fighter at the time at a local gym, and that was his whole thing. And that's kind of how they met. But he really, really liked motorcycles, and he actually started with the Zalunski Advanced Riding School and doing some track days there, and eventually got introduced into the Central Road Racing Association. And I came out to
The OG CRA.
the OG.
Yeah.
I came out to spectate and I loved it. I was 15 at the time and I snuck into corner working at the racetrack. Nobody asked me how old I was, so I kind of snuck in a little under the radar. I was supposed to be 16. I was 15 at the time. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I like watched everybody racing, and I remember the very first time it was Scott Stahl came around turn one. They put me on 1 Alpha, which is like the back straight on the Donnybrook. And you like came around the corner because there's all these trees so you can't see it. Full 12 o'clock wheelie, just whipping around the track uncontrollably. And I was like freaking out. And the guy was just like, no, it's just Scott. Didn't even have to look. Just sat with his back to the track. It's just Scott Stahl. And I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And I made a deal with my mom that when I graduated college, then I could race bikes, because her whole deal was like, I wouldn't be your mom if you didn't make it past 18. So somehow my stepdad worked it out with my grandfather to get me a bike a little early. So I started doing track days, and I loved it and got obsessed with it and really made a push for my first year. And it turned out COVID kind of shut my first year of road racing down. And my second year I threw down, did really well. And my buddy was like, Catherine, if you want to get really good at this, you have to start dirt biking. I was like, okay, seems legit. Everybody's cross training doing dirt biking. And I went and bought a TTR 230 like same day.
Electric start, no Kickstarter.
No, it was an electric start. It was an 08,
Mm-hmm.
an 08 TTR 230. And I took it out on the trail. And the first thing I did was sink it underwater and popped the chain off the back. And all of my friends are standing at the top going, ha, 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 like
how does that even happen?
It was, they all knew. It was like the known water hole at Nemaji State Park. It just eats TTRs. It's what it's known for. And it's terrible. So, yeah, and it just kind of turned into an obsession from there, like a fascination almost. It was different from road racing, where it was like an obsession to win, to like be the best, because that's kind of where the sponsorship drive came from. Instead, it turned into more of like a love and a passion for overcoming things and seeing things that you wouldn't normally see. Being able to scale mountains and travel across the country for $1,500 instead of $10,000 a weekend at the racetrack.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, so you're saying like COVID? That was 2020. So how long did you road race for?
I actually quit last year, 2023.
Really?
I don't know. My mom might have to come in and correct me. Sometime between 2022 and 2023.
Okay.
Just because it had to have been 2 years ago, 2022, mid-season, about September.
Okay.
My first expert year, I just pulled out. I was done. I just liked traveling more.
Well, you know what? I mean, I talked to Chavi Flores about this last night, and apparently this is like a worldwide phenomenon. But who's Anissa?
She's my marketing person.
Oh, you have a marketing person.
Yeah,
Okay.
she helps me with social media for the clinics.
Well, we were talking. What I was saying about Chavi last night is
Yeah.
that there's the rate of racer attrition. So like from the time you start doing track days to the time you've gone club racing and then you've amateur and expert, it's about 3 years on average. Not everybody's an idiot like me doing it for like 20 plus years, right? So it sounds like you're right in that window, right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Damn quitters.
I know. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was just like, I read up on you, I looked at your website and stuff, and I did see that you said something about you doing the fourth overall thing, but the
Mhm.
reality was that was your fourth in that particular amateur
Yep.
overall. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And then something else. Oh, you said you went as farthest a women had gone, but I think you just maybe didn't realize that a rock star in that particular club, Jessica Zalewski, was an absolute lunatic on a motorcycle and raced nationals and stuff. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I gave you shit earlier, and I just figured I'd do it publicly too.
No, it was well deserved. First, well deserved. I didn't know that
Yeah.
she came up through CRA. I thought that she was in Minnesota, but I also never heard anything about it either. So it's genuinely just pure neglect is I think the word I'm looking for.
And by the way, thanks to Hawk Mazzotta for the compliment on me being handsome. I appreciate that. Yeah. You see that in the comments?
Of course I do.
Yeah, yeah, that's
I mean, the
that guy's
sparkling white teeth, the chiseled jaw, like you can't
I don't
deny.
know about all that, but yeah. So okay, so how did you quit racing basically a year and a half ago ish,
Mhm.
and like how do you get from there road racing and then to like year and a half later doing these rando TikToks about the mistakes we're making? Because a lot of the shit I saw, I was like, man, I can totally relate to that. I even showed my wife. I was like, dude, look what you're saying. Like, look at like who is this chick? Like, so I'm just kind of curious of like what made you go from club racer, amateur club racer to like going to expert, probably getting your teeth kicked in expert, right? And
Mhm.
then throwing in the towel. Like what from throwing in the towel to doing this sponsor coach thing, like how does that work?
Yeah, so when I quit road racing, I intermingled in a lot of different disciplines. I did flat track, I did enduro, I did like I'm doing hard enduro now. But in that process of kind of playing around in dirt bikes, I learned real quickly that I know how to ride a motorcycle, but I didn't know how to ride a dirt bike. So I started traveling, trying to find a coach. There weren't any coaches in Minnesota that taught specifically beyond like the MSF course. Everybody was teaching you clutches, start, stop. And then there was the other half of the extreme, like there was Logan Kiddock over here teaching like extremist double A winning national championships. Like if you're not throwing down, then you're not coaching or you're not training kind of deal, where there wasn't anything in between for the people who like recreationally wanted to do that. So I traveled, got a bunch of coaches, and I started documenting that whole process. And that was actually when I met Anissa. And her whole deal was like, Catherine, I've never seen a woman race before. It's amazing. It's incredible. I always thought that women couldn't do those kinds of things. And so I started making my social media channel for Angel. I made it very specific. Like I always, when I went out doing something, I would make a reel thinking this is something that Angel would appreciate.
Hmm.
And along that way, I actually grew a whole different fan base that came from that. And that developed into the clinics that I do. And the second I had those clinics and I had something that was beyond myself, I
Right.
signed two $2,000 sponsorships in a month
Really? And
immediately.
Like $2,000 sponsorships for dirt racer people, or
For the clinics,
oh, okay.
towards the clinics that I began to
Oh,
coach. Yes,
okay.
Anissa is Angel. Um, and so one of the biggest lessons I ever learned was that starting a business is the best education you can ever get. And I really learned that if I wanted to have the clinics be successful, I needed a coach, and I got a coach. And the more I learned about marketing and business in general, the more I started to see the shortcomings that came from sending out emails that just said, "Hey, I'd love to be sponsored by your company. Please see the attached PDF." Um, and once I started getting those emails, I started really noticing a lot of those similarities. Like I started getting emails for racers for Supercross, and it's like I'm not in that space. And it was the more that I got the receiving end, and the more I studied on business, the more I started to see parallels between how marketing for a business works and marketing and sponsorship works. And it just took a little bit of finagling and some people who really trusted me to start practicing and implementing not only what I was doing and thinking of, but then having other people try it out and test it for themselves too. Um, and I started to see a lot of patterns, and it worked out. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, look, the classic club racer thing. It's like you send in this resume thing. Like, I get them all the time too. Like, I used to get them more, before like print was dead.
mhm.
But what?
His name is Ted Johnson. He trained NFL hockey players and Olympic athletes.
Yeah, and she's just answering the question from one of the comments. Jesse Nelson. Actually, that's a CRA lunatic too. And he says, "Yeah, who was your coach that did Olympians?"
Yeah,
Okay.
because I had a really bad shoulder injury, so I went to go see a PT specialist, and he worked with a lot of professional athletes who also prompted the sponsorship journey. He said, "Hey, why don't you just go get sponsorships like all of these other guys?" It's like, well, that's really obvious. Of course, I'll do that. And he helped me build out like the initial racer resume, and it turned into a 12-page proposal. And I started getting a lot of mentors along that journey that helped refine and then slowly actually start realizing that you shouldn't have that in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like when in the '90s. Okay, I'm thinking that Jesse Nelson can relate to that too. But in the '90s, it was all about making this racer resume, and then like, who knows how to make one? You just kind of make
Yep.
it up, basically. Like, oh, my results. Here's some pictures. These are my goals. These are my sponsors. This is my race number. Blah blah blah. And then you send it in, and you wait, and like 8 weeks later, you'd get a form letter back from you know whoever. I mean, I'm just say Lockhart Phillips, for instance. Like it's a catalog thing, but and then at some point, everybody, you'd get pretty easily. You could get by doing that, you could get 30% off this, and
Hmm.
every now and then they might throw you a bone. You'd get like a free whatever. But for the most part, it was pretty. It was a lot of work for not a lot of reward. And I've heard you say that similar things to that, and I was like, I'm kind of curious, like what's the biggest sponsor you've gotten for somebody?
With Kevin Horney, we got him a $10,000 sponsorship from Olson's Detailing.
No
And
shit.
while he was part of the group coaching program with me, he signed that factory team deal with Apex Racing for Moto America.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
I see that kid all over the internet too, man. That guy's like he's on TikTok, Kevin Horty. He's hit me up a few times. I might have the kid on the show at some point, but
There you go.
yeah, I've seen that kid quite a bit. And I think even Chris Simcoe from Pin the Gas had him on his show.
Hmm.
So wow, you scored the kid 10 grand. So wow, that's quite the contrast from sending out the race resume and getting a 30% discount on whatever product, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, that actually worked out because so when you reach out to a company, there's more departments than just the marketing that have sponsorship dollars. A lot of us really think that marketing is the only way to go.
Right.
So through research and development, there's money, there's experimental budgets inside of that, there's experimental budgets in branding. But Kevin found experimental budget in human resources. So he actually got that deal. I know, right? So how it kind of worked out from what he told me was that when he sat down and asked them kind of like, what are some of the things you're struggling with, what are some of the things that we could partner with and get together on, he said he came back and he told me that Olson's Detailing was having trouble staffing their departments with people who knew what they were doing, and it was a gear they wanted gearheads who didn't need a lot of training, who loved modifications and loved like jacking up their cars. And where better place to find those people than the racetrack?
If you say so. I don't know. Most of the people that I know at the racetrack are spending every dollar they have to go racing.
It's true.
You
But
know,
they do love working on stuff. I
not
don't I
all of
don't
us. Not all
don't
of
take my
us.
word for it. I don't know if he hired anybody off of that deal, but I know he got the deal, and I know he also said, I have the text messages, I can send them to you. He said that
Yeah.
he had the ability to renegotiate after 6 months for
What?
more money.
That's epic. That's epic. That's a good get. So, um, wow, 10 grand. That's man, a lot of club race. And that dude is mostly club racing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Trevor Watson says, yeah, I hate working on my bike at the track. I don't know if you know that guy. He's that weird Honda guy.
Nope. I'm so far removed from the road racing world now. I'm
Yeah, dude,
sorry.
you're talking to me, man. So like whatever.
I know.
But yeah, so yeah, Trevor Watson, he's like a guy that races a Honda. Like he's the one guy that well, up until 2024 anyway. So um but anyway, okay, so let's go back to it. Um yeah, so then there's something changed like in the early 2000s. a lot of the a lot of the moto companies started doing they would just give every racer, like you would just send them a copy of your license and that was enough to get whatever. And that stuff that's still kind of pretty prevalent today. I mean, it's dude, you got a racing license, it's like pretty much you're getting 30% off of something, right?
Mhm.
So, like busting through that next thing where you're trying to get a significant sponsorship, like, for me, Yamaha, um, that was a undertaking for me. I worked on a deck and, I even went out. This is really funny. Like when I set up a lunch meeting. So I'm like, fuck, I got to lunch with these guys. And I got a suit and with like a Yamaha blue tie and everything. I was like dialed. And the Yamaha dude totally made fun of me. He was like, "Dude, you don't dress like this all the time, do you?" I was like, "No, man." Yeah,
Yep.
so like, and that was years ago, but I mean, and it worked for me. And I've had a relationship with Yamaha since 2008 now. So you know, I've been on the receiving end of sponsorship and keeping it and losing it sometimes. And, so it's like an up and down thing. So talk to me a little bit about like the process that you take, like each individual has their own case. Like say
Mhm.
some club racer comes to you, gives you the $7 or whatever it is that you're charging now. Um, and go.
So, okay, solid. Um, I always lead off with there's no money in motorsports anymore, because you are the target market. You are now the target market just by reaching out to them. They are giving you a discount. You're spending more money with them. Effectively, that is them targeting you as your market. So if you want to get past that whole discount barrier, the number one question I always ask everybody, it's what I do is not for everybody. If your sole goal and intention is to win, to win, to win, to win, to win, then what we do isn't gonna work for you. Because I always ask everybody, why? What is the reason you want to win? What is the like self-fulfilling thing that happens that gives you this obsession, that gives you this drive? Like, what is the one thing that you would do if you got injured? Like, why do you keep coming back to the sport? Why do you keep coming back? There's something there, whether it's the community, whether it's the people. There is something inside of you. For me,
Mental
like,
disorder.
Yep. Like there is something going on outside of just, I want to win. And you really need to understand that and talk about it, because that is where the passion comes in. That's how you show other people who aren't in motorsports what it means to be in the motorsports market, because we are some of the most brand loyal people. Like racers who have fans, their fans are, there's a statistic out there, it's probably 60 or 70% more likely to recognize a brand if their favorite racer or rider is representing that brand outside of their competitors.
Hmm.
And so there's a huge brand loyalty that happens within sports fans, but us at the lower levels who don't have the ability to get that 100 million follower views, we need to tap into the understanding of like, what is it that the company needs? So we need to approach them with a sense of questioning. We need to understand what moves the needle for them. Like, what are some of the key factors that we can help them with? In Kevin's case, it was they need to hire more people who know what they're doing. In Zach's case, with a lot of the brands that he works with, it's just being able to engage with veteran audiences. They need more exposure in that specific area. I got a paid for mechanic first season because they needed to train a mechanic on dirt bikes without, like, they didn't have anybody in the dirt bike department that could train them. So we just had a mechanic that would come in sometimes at races and just like go through the bike, check it out, be like, hey, I crashed. We need to get this bike up and running in like 2 minutes. Go. That kind of deal. So it's like figuring out what that company needs and how can you apply it to your program. And that's where it comes in. It's not about you winning. It's not about like, when I win, there's going to be so much cash and all of the fans are going to love me. Like, it's not about that anymore.
I don't know if it really ever was. I mean, honestly, I don't know if that really was ever the case. Right?
It's true. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, one of the things that you've said something about, like, in order to get sponsorship, you don't need these like X amount of followers or whatever, right? So like, what do you mean by that? Like, say some club racer dude has 500 followers, like he
Mhm.
as a quote influencer, like, you know, somebody's gonna be like, dude, you have 500 followers, go away, right? So,
Yeah. Um, well, Kevin only had 400 followers, I think, when he signed his $10,000 contract. But the thing with that is there's this really cool thing that happens with audience traffic and numbers. There's two different types of audiences that everybody has. The first audience is audiences that you own. So like when I switched from road racing to dirt biking, I lost a lot of my audience
mm,
because I was borrowing the road racing community's audience. I was borrowing the CRA's audience. But when I was talking to Anissa and I was like posting stuff specifically for Angel just for her content, and I got a lot of female demographic that really resonated with that and spoke with that when I moved to flat track, when I moved to hard enduro, all of those women followed me. They came with me. They didn't care that I switched disciplines. They liked the story. That's an audience that you own. And that is 10 times more beneficial, bad wording. That's more worthy. It's always
it's more
more
gooder.
effective. Yeah, more gooder. What is this? A school for ants? It's always more effective to talk to a small audience of the right people than it is a large audience of semi okay people. That's why, like, when you get those messages like, oh, you're only talking good about them because they pay you, like, we're avoiding that by truly speaking only to this very specific person. And then when we speak to that very specific person, we can find sponsors that help us with that specific person. And that gives us access to their audiences. So we can take borrowed audience numbers, right? So say I'm racing Moto America. Moto America has 1 million. I don't know for sure. Moto America has 1 million followers on their social media. That's just a generic number. So now, if Moto America shares my stuff all the time, then I can use those numbers as part of my presentation. If I pitch to a newspaper and I say, hey, please publish this article, I can say 3 times a year I get exposed to this many people. It gets printed this many times, goes these many places. That's how you can help boost your numbers outside of things. When you get featured on podcasts, you tap into audiences that you borrow. So that gets you more exposure in places that you're not normally seen.
I see. I see. Okay. Well, I mean, it's something that everybody. I wish I knew the secret. Like, and it sounds like you have kind of a secret. So, I'm hoping I'm hoping the racers that are watching this thing comment and ask what they're getting for the $7. You know, I
Yeah.
don't know what is that about anyway? What are you getting out of this?
So, okay, here's the deal. I don't so like the sponsorship thing is fun for me. It is. It's fun for me. I like helping people start things that grow the motorsports industry. My job mainly is the clinics. It really is. I kind of wrote this book, so I'm replacing that $7 course with this book. And that was all about just specifically how to get a sponsor's attention and how to like send out the right emails, the right messaging, so that it's about them and not you. And that's really what it all talks about. But my whole goal is like, if I can get the club racers paid, then the club racers have more money to spend at the clubs, the events, for buying bikes, buying gear, and that money goes higher up into those levels. Those levels have more money to spend on bigger and better events. They can get us more media at the club levels. They can help us grow the industry, because at the core of it, the club levels don't have the exposure that we as racers need in order to get the sponsorships. So we have to go get our own media to bring in the money to help boost the clubs. And I'm trying to regrow the sport, because everybody says there's no money in motorsports, but it's growing.
The thing is, like, our sport, my sport that I share with everybody, and I love sharing this sport with people. Our sport is also full of, I'll just say it, snake oil salesmen, empty promises. So like, tell me what it would take. Oh wait, here. Yeah, tell me what it would take. What's your like elevator pitch to get somebody to be like, you know what, you're the one. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you convince me per se, like, that you're the one that's capable of this?
I always lead off with sponsorship is dead. I mean,
Sponsorship is dead. Jesus
sponsorship
Christ.
is dead. It is. That's a quote from the chief marketing officer of Sherco when I interviewed him on the topic. He said sponsorship died with the rise of the influencer. And that is something that I took to heart, because it's not logos, it's not exposure anymore. It's so much more than that. It's about being able to engage and work with businesses in engaging audiences now. Now we're moving into a world of advanced technology, virtual reality, and like different ways that we're trying to get people to experience things outside of the norm. It's not just a sporting event anymore. Now it's like an actual experience that you have to go see. But people aren't wanting to leave their homes anymore. So we are losing spectator bases. We're losing racers. We're losing money at the foundational level in order to support the national. So we need to change. We need to understand that the market and the industry has changed, and we have to adapt with that.
But what I'm saying is, like, why would I pick you?
That's fair. Well, I've helped other people sign money. I mean, I really try and be transparent. I have my book up. I'm happy to screen share it. I share it in all of my reels, because I've seen the terrible ads. I've seen the like, get my book to pay for your passion. You're not paying for your passion. It's going to be hard. Right. It's not going to be easy. You have to do the work. Yeah. I'm going to show you how to help set up your own program. And that program ideally will generate its own revenue, and then sponsors will pay you to run that program. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you. Like, I can show you what to do. I can tell you all of the things to send, but you can't do a wheelie if you never start the bike. So
you can't do a wheelie unless you never start the bike. Did you like do research on me or something that I'm into wheelies?
You road race. Of course you're into wheelies.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, look, I've done it the old school. Oh, look, the group sponsorship coaching was the place to get it done. Everyone's situation is incredibly unique, and Catherine was an expert at extracting each person's story to take. Who is Jennifer based? Who is that?
That's my mom.
Oh, wow. I mean, like Trevor Watson, dude, you're the Honda guy. Like, comment with the question, man. Stop trying to pitch me on t-shirt ideas. Sponsorship is dead, you know?
It's a great t-shirt idea. I should actually make that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, being in this game for as long being in this sport as long as I have, you know, I've, like I said, the ebb and flow, and, you know, been victim of the empty promises and the snake oil salesman. So it's like, you know, like you're saying the right things, and I'd like to see more of a roadmap almost, you know, but like I kind of was hoping that more racers would jump in and comment with questions and ideas.
How do
So
I show pictures? Because I've actually been making little doodles for my book about a roadmap. But Angel's got a great point too. I have a free podcast where I actually walk through it all because it's really intense. There's like a lot that goes into it.
well, there's a present button on the bottom of your screen, and you could
Ooh.
share a window or something if you like.
Share screen. Don't say sponsorship. First draft. This is the first draft of my book that I've been working on. There it is. Dun-dun-dun. These are my cute little doodles that I have. So basically, this is how it looks like to reach out to a sponsor. You know, you have your initial outreach, you have your introduction, you have your like discovery call, and then you write your proposal, you go into negotiations, then you get paid, and you have the little follow-up framework, which is the thing with like reaching out to people is a lot of us quit at the first or second reach outs, you know, because they never responded, so they said no, and that's not always the case. Sometimes they're just really bad at email. Sometimes they were just on vacation. Sometimes they had a dealer tour, you know. So it's about being able to follow up and follow up and follow up and do it effectively in a way that really meets you. I don't have a doodle of everything else going on, but this is one of my favorites too. The like understanding the ways that you need to be able to talk to sponsors.
Trevor says he's gonna Venmo you $7 so we could see the magic.
See the magic.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, like I said, the discount thing is, you know, and I don't know if sponsorship's dead. You know, Cardo gave me like 6 of these.
Mhm.
But yeah, like the way I think in the 20 something years I've been doing this, the way I've gotten the sponsorship has evolved a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's dead. I wouldn't say it's dead. Robbie Weaver says he's in for that 7. Yeah, well, guys, if you guys are watching, ask questions, man. Like she's here. She's the sponsor expert, you know, coach,
That's
right?
what I'm here for. I like this.
Yeah.
How about a new racer who doesn't have many followers and has never won a race? Is it worth trying for sponsors of any kind? So Kevin, the one
Yeah.
who did the $10,000, he had one race under his belt. He had Daytona. Otherwise, he had 3 practice days and 500 followers when he signed that $10,000 contract. And it all came about because he asked them questions. Zach said that he's never had anybody ask him about his social media following. In fact, the few times he has had people ask him about his social media following, they said, listen, I know how this works. I help you build your social media following. You'll benefit more from this than I will as far as social media goes. But we're here for the in-person stuff, not the social media. So it's more about like how you're able to answer the questions that you give yourself.
Right.
Like understanding what moves the needle for them, asking them like, what are your objectives for this year? What are some things that are holding you back? And it's not always just marketing, you know, it could be research and development. I worked with a drone company where the number one problem they were having was mountain bikers love their drones, but dirt bikers hated them and they couldn't figure out why. Like they just could not sell to our market. And I said, I'll tell you why if you just give me one. And they let me rotate through every single month. And it turns out that their drones had a 6-foot buffer system. So they couldn't go into the woods because mountain bike trails are wider than dirt bike trails, apparently, for some reason. But they would have never known if a dirt biker didn't take it out on the trails that we ride.
That makes sense. Yeah, I saw one at the bicycle shop the other day. It's like a little drone that follows you around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It does you. I don't know if you point it on you or whatever, but it like follows you around. So
yeah, they're cool. They are really cool. They've got some really interesting technology going into them. I like the like pre-programmed. They'll do like spirals and they'll do weird cinematographic things for you if you move around.
So R6 Chrissy, she's a avid track day junkie. Her and her boyfriend, I guess, do this thing where they like tow people's stuff to the track. And so she's got a question. She's like, what about companies? Like, not only individuals want the partner sponsorship, is it the same thing with companies?
Almost, kind of. So the thing I like to say about companies is like you already have a target person that you're talking to. You have a product or a service that you do talking specifically to a person. So one of the things you can do to kind of figure out what companies you want to talk to is imagine where your ideal client, customer, person is before they need your stuff and after they need your stuff. And those are good companies to partner with. So like for me, good companies to partner with are tracks or clubs or track days, because those are people who are starting to get into their passion and realizing it's really expensive. So I should work with schools and coaches and people who are working with racers and riders who are already interested in the industry. If you said R6 Christie does toe straps.
No, she's got a tow business. It's called the Moving Moto, and basically people pay her and her boyfriend to like haul their shit to the track.
Oh,
Like people that don't have trucks,
she just sent me a message on the Instagrams. Yes, Moving Moto. So one of the things that you could try and partner with, I don't know what's going on with the US Hard Enduro, but they need shipping to get from like California to Hawaii, or the certain series and trying to partner and contract with series who moves around. Carolina Dirt Bike Rentals is one of my students. His name is Zach, who's in the chat now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it's all about kind of figuring out how you can help people along the way. So is your target market already hiding, and how can you kind of cross benefit, right? Because it has to go both ways. It can't just be a one-way street. You actually have to provide value to the people you're working with.
Shonuff USA says if he raced Daytona, he's probably talking about Harney,
Yep.
right? Maybe not, dude, because
I don't think so.
CCS races at Daytona, dude. It could have been like whatever that weekend is in October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had 3 track days and Daytona before he got his first $10,000 contract, and that was it.
Yeah. So, he may not have necessarily had a resume yet or figured out how to do one. I've talked to that kid. He's kind of coming along, but everybody just like you start from zero. Robbie Weaver says, it seems to me that finding your fit outside the motorcycle industry for sponsor could work.
Yeah. That's my like number one thing. That's why I say there's no money in motorsports. Like if everyone is trying to go to the same 7 sponsors, those sponsors don't have the money to spend on every single one of us. That's why they give us discounts and then we give them our money.
Yeah, there's only so many Yamahas to go around. Right?
Yeah, so they're spending their money the best way they can in the best way that they want, right? Their whole goal is to grow the industry. So if they can sponsor the high profile individuals to sell more bikes, then that's what they're going to do. For us, it's up to us to be able to go find the funding to grow the clubs instead.
Okay. And then Trevor Watson has a pretty fun comment. He says the problem is if you get a really good outside the industry sponsor, Motor America will steal it from you.
Uh-oh. Is this regarding like the Mission Foods thing?
I have no idea, man. Like I have no idea. That's funny, but
it can happen. I would believe it. I think one of the worst things that Zach just experienced at Carolina Dirt Bike Rentals, he's had a problem where he presents an idea to a sponsor and then the sponsor will take it and give it to somebody else. And one of the things we talk about, one of the 7 key things that goes on when you talk to a sponsor, one of the problems is doubt, which means that they doubt that you are the one capable of pulling off your idea that you had. So there's the way, you really want to double down and make sure that the sponsor believes that you are the right fit for them. And you just ask them, be like, hey, do you think that I'm the right person to do this for you? Is this a good time for you right now? Or is this a someday kind of day kind of thing? Like, is this do you feel good about this partnership? And if they say no, then cool, move on.
Wow. I mean, that's something, man. Yeah, he says Mission Foods, Steel Commander, and so on. Really? Okay, yeah, because Mission Foods has sponsored some racers. They still sponsor some racers, I think, but I don't necessarily know what's. I think Steel Commander sponsors Motor America too, like classes or whatever. But yeah, I feel that. Nice pull, Trevor. Jesse Nelson says your target audience is 0. We have the money. What? I don't know. Let's see. Same as trying to direct your own script. Something about sponsoring a lot of flat track, cheap thrills. Yeah, I don't know, guys. You guys want to? Does anybody in the comments have more? God, I'd hope you guys would have more questions. Lest you guys are just all sponsored and you know everything already.
Yeah,
But
Zach makes a really good point. The Carolina Dirt Bike Rentals with for R6 Christie about he was talking about some of the sponsors that he's gotten as a business because he operates as B2B instead of B2C, which is business to business instead of business to consumer. There are if you go to communications departments inside of businesses, their whole goal is like media versus sales. If you go to sales instead of marketing, if you can get the salespeople to see the dollar signs from selling bulk instead of selling one-to-one, they're more likely to make whatever you've got going happen. So I worked with a chemical manufacturer. They did soaps to get into the local gas station for the car wash. So it was car wash. Because originally I pitched it as I'll put your soap in my power washer at the track and we'll clean the bikes after the race. And they're like, we don't care about that. We do both. I don't want one-to-one. So it's just understanding who your network is and how you can apply that. And when a sponsor gives you a question or a pushback, that pushback isn't a no. It's not a no. It's an unanswered question.
Right. I mean, look, I've done most of my stuff from relationships that I've built for years, and you pick up the phone, be like, dude, I need this, and then it happens, right? Yeah. But back in the day, it was I ended up having some Corvette company, like these guys that did custom Corvettes, and all it was for me, I was like, okay, who can paint fiberglass? You know what? Corvette dudes, because they're all fiberglass. So I went and had a chat with these tatted up dudes in the 909. I was like, hey, you guys are Corvette dudes, right? What do you think about painting a race bike? And they're like, dude, no problem, bring it over. And that's how I got my first paint job for free thing.
Yeah.
And it was a little weird, but I know some buddies that were getting a couple $100 a month from some auto repair shop back in the day. So those convincing those guys to spend money nowadays is hard because they all spend it on Little League now, which is a whole nother thing, but it's community stuff. So they're all about that. Let's see, that Anissa person says, you want to explain maybe some of the sponsors that you've looked at for your TKO stuff?
Yeah.
What's your TKO stuff? What is that?
Tennessee Knockout, which is the U.S. hard enduro. It is now one of 2 internationally recognized hard enduro rounds in the United States. Silver Kings just got introduced this year, which is pretty exciting. So kind of what that process looks like. So to paint the image, I guess. I don't have a super big following. I've got 6,800 on Instagram and 400 people on Facebook, which is more than most, I know. I used to only have 400. But what I've done and what's really worked for me is the very first thing I do is I figure out who am I talking to? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? So for the Tennessee knockout, what happened was a lot of ladies from Tennessee reached out to me. They said, Catherine, we would love for you to come out here and coach. It would be great. And then from there, I was like, okay, so we did a challenge. I left the chat for like 2 hours and they all arranged it for me to do the TKO while I didn't know it. So now I'm doing the TKO for these women. So I start thinking about like publishing content specifically for these women and inspiring these women and motivating them and what can I do to like make it better for them. So then now that I have this like image in my mind of who these people are, like what do they do? What do they want? Like what is their goal out of all of this stuff? Then I send out a survey and I say, Dear Internet, I asked you to help me out last year. It was really great. We did really cool. All of a sudden, my clinics in the first year went from nothing to now we're national. Would really love that support again. Please fill out this survey real quick. And the thing with the survey is we try and make up these scenarios of sponsors that'll be really, really great. Like I used to think that a vinyl wrapping sponsor was going to be the solution for me. I was like, this is going to be great. Somebody's going to wrap my bike. It's going to be the most epic thing in the world. And then you bring it to the sponsor and they're like, I don't want to wrap that. That's awful. I lose money doing that. Like, why would I do that? And you don't have anything to back your claims of like, this is going to be great. But if you have a survey, even if you only get 10 responses, if you have a survey, you have the ability to say, 50% of my audience says that they're going to buy a bike this year. 90% of my audience says they're looking at buying gear. 80% of my audience is female-based, and they have issues breaking out if they ride 3 days in a row. They want organic skincare. I kid you not. I can pull up my survey. My audience wants organic skincare. So now I can go to organic skincare companies, and I can say, hey, look, I have a new market for you to enter. And the cool thing is like, I've never had anybody ask me how many people fill out my survey. I've never had anybody ask me how many people fill out my survey.
Huh. That's like really interesting, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just listen. I just want to hear more. I've got Robbie Weaver, and Robbie is a club racer out here in SoCal. He's like 11 years old, and so can you speak to the aging track demographic?
Yeah, I had a gentleman. His name is Jesse Cameron. He is a vet rider. I think he's going on 60. Don't take my word for that. Sorry, Jesse, if you're watching this and I'm totally wrong. But his whole deal is he entered one of my sponsorship challenges, and he was like, Catherine, what's an old guy like me who buys everything at a discount, who races a bike from 1990, like who doesn't want to buy anything new? How am I supposed to get sponsors? And I said, have you ever considered custom manufacturers, CNC shops, moto museums? Like, who are the people that make antique bikes, bike shows? Like, where can you go to meet people like you who love what you're doing, who are psyched about your like ragtag duct taped together bike? Those are the people that want to support.
First of all, Robbie Weaver doesn't have a ragtag duct tape together bike. His shit's always clean. He's just old,
Fair.
Right? Okay. So, wow, now I'm starting to get some questions. Maybe people are getting off work or something. But yeah, okay. So Jesse Nelson says 7 years of road racing. What is that about?
I don't know. I have 3 years of road
Oh,
racing.
Oh, I know what it is. It has to be this. I gave you shit about your website earlier.
Yeah.
But like part of your story is something about 7 years ago, and then like the story starts 7 years ago. But like your race history starts 3 years ago or 4 years ago, right? So
I was at the racetrack 7 years ago, but I wasn't racing 7 years ago. I was working at the racetrack.
Yeah,
when I
you
was
snuck in
15.
and were corner working. You snuck in under the radar and were corner working.
Yep, at 15.
Yeah, at 15, I was played football, playing stupid ball sports. Okay, so what discipline? Rob Canton Jr. says, what discipline of racing attracts the most money? Is it flat track, road racing? Not likely, parenthetically. Or he'd bet motocross. it's got to be motocross, right?
I would assume motocross or supercross,
Supercross.
one of those two, only
Yeah.
because they're televised. And
Well,
that's
not just that, but I've talked to sponsors about this for a long time, and you
Mhm.
go to a road race track, right? And you pay your money to go see the races, and you're in the stands, and the bikes are like, boom, right? And then you see them about a minute and a half later, and
Yeah.
it's boom, and that's
Yeah, it's
it.
hard to spectate.
But with Supercross, they've got like quite the captive audience in that stadium, and the like everybody, even if you have a shitty seat, can see the whole thing.
Mhm.
So, the fan experience level in Supercross is probably quite a bit higher than ours. I
Yeah.
think in our sport, the fans have more access to the riders too. So there's
Mm.
like a little give and take there. Average Joe Schmo can go get tickets and be like right up in the garages almost at Coda. Like, so there's a little give and take there, but I think there's more fans and more money over there for whatever reason.
I would agree.
Yeah, and Abraham, he's a racer out of, I think, the Pacific Northwest area. Abram 4131, he says, what's the best approach as a racer when looking for a sponsor? I think you covered that a little bit earlier, but
Yeah. I would lead off with an inquisitive mind
lead
to
off
make it like the most ragtag fancy thing in the world is just lead off with the Spanish Inquisition. Go straight for it. Like just ask them so many questions, because if you're not asking the questions, you're not in control of the conversation. So I don't know about you, but I hate it when I like walk in and I'm super nervous and I just give the whole spiel of like why they should pay me. And then at the very end, there's this awkward silence and they go, that's really great, but what does that do for me? And now you're like, questions. And it's like that awkward stare. Like if you can lead off with the questions, you control the conversation, and everybody's favorite thing to talk about is themselves. So
okay.
so if you can get them to talk about themselves, fun fact, they'll like you.
Okay. Yeah, Robbie Weaver says, yeah, data matters.
It
That's
does.
Yeah, and Trevor Watson says, so what I'm picking up is that a stacked resume with results isn't as important than just asking questions to sponsors on how you can help them.
Yeah, I have a saying that goes like, you can't properly articulate your value in a single sheet of paper in 10-point font. Because the deal is like, you hand them this piece of paper that says FIM world champion, like Supercross West series, placed 4th overall with all of this stuff, and it's like, I don't know what half of that I got sent that exact resume. I'm like, I don't know what any of that means. Like I had to go Google it, and I was like, okay, and then
Well,
then
see,
you
that's
take,
why you got to include epic photos,
yeah.
right? I mean,
People are picture people. It's true. But I
honestly though, like I did get an old school kind of resume, and I still remember it. I talked about it the other day, but there's a kid that races Moto America right now, and I met him when he was 8.
wow.
We were at the International Motorcycle Show in Long Beach. This 8-year-old comes up to me, super cocky looking, hands me a postcard with like race resume shit on it, and says,
Mhm.
"Hey, my name's Owen Williams." Hands me the card, says, "I'll see you when I'm 14." Turns around and walked away. It was the gnarliest thing I've ever like. And the kid, he's bad, dude. The kid is bad. Like like he's kind of a badass now. I think he rides a 750 and super sport
That's
nationals.
awesome.
And but like when he was 8, dude, like I probably still have it somewhere because the kid was such a badass. So sometimes the old school shit works, if you got like a shtick.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I worked with that vinyl wrapping company. I got him to come around and he told me to make an actual picture book. Like I used to work in the printing industry, so I made a 6x9 12-page like thick papered printed picture book, and it was super incredible. But the thing was like the fans loved it more than the sponsors that I reached out to, which kind of sucked. But it turns out if you don't ask them any questions and you give them this thing that says like, here's all the things I can do for you, usually they don't want those things.
Right.
And that was
Right.
what was hard about it.
Sticky Genius says, is it worth looking at a big business, at big businesses as a club racer, like Alpine Stars or Woodcraft, etc., or is it just best to start with smaller companies that are lesser known and maybe less competitive?
It depends on what you want to go for. So, like, if you go for Alpine Stars and Woodcraft, I don't know you or your story personally, but most likely you're going to get a discount. The cool thing with that is, though, is just like we were talking about earlier, you have two audiences. You have an owned audience and a borrowed audience. Is if you're sponsored by Alpine Stars and you wear all their stuff, you tag them, they'll share you, and you'll get more exposure for your other sponsors. You can say like, "Hey, I got more stuff from this stuff and this stuff." Yeah, Dustin's on it. um, so that's kind of how that works, and it's good to build rapport with those companies if you can. But that's
Yeah.
a really long term thing for quick money. I always tell people go small and go outside of the industry. Don't go after the same 7 people that everybody else is. Otherwise, you're going to end up in the pile with everybody else.
I had a friend back in the day. He told me when I was first started racing to kind of go after local businesses. So if you're, if let's just say you're in Southern California and you're racing and you live in Upland, I don't know, like would it be better to go after like Joe Blow's plumbing and whatever,
Hmm.
like
Um,
the lighting dude, the plumbing dude, the tow truck guy. Would it be better to go after them maybe for money, the local businesses?
where you're at matters. So if you're running a local circuit, so like I was running CRA at Brainerd, going to Brainerd businesses makes a really big difference. But now that my clinics are national, I can't go to Minnesota only based companies because they don't get any benefit from all of the other stuff I'm doing. So now I need to
Hmm.
think about businesses who might not have a location everywhere I'm at, but have a location some of the places and would benefit from a bigger and broader network now.
So, like, for example, our old friend Robbie Weaver, to go, he's asked you like double AARP, covered California mental health, big pharma stuff. Probably, I mean, what he's really looking for is Viagra and like all the right. Go after those, Rob. You got it, dude.
Yeah. Um, the big I honestly don't know how to get into big pharma. I really don't. I don't even know if you can with like club restrictions and stuff with the whole drugs thing going on right now. The best thing that I could pitch though would be, hey, listen, we have a whole market over here of people that beat themselves up. Like in a survey I just did, 80% of people inside of the household expect to be in the hospital at some point in the next 12 months. So, like,
Okay.
maybe we should work out a deal.
Hmm. So, or like your local chiropractor, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I've done that.
This is good stuff. Okay. Um, I'm being asked like, what sponsors are you having? Like, I remember seeing on one of your social medias, like you had it was like a 2-letter team. I forget. Was it
BK Racing.
BK
Yep.
Bankruptcy Bank Racing? That's
No, it was Bastine Kunacek Racing. No, that was how I started.
Bastien
That was
Kunacek.
Yep, that was the family startup. But so now currently I have Hermoto as a gear company. I have Stark Designs for graphics. I have Up North Power and Sports as a paying beta sponsor. I
What's a
actually
beta
have a
sponsor?
Yep, for the motorcycle that I run. I run a beta. Um,
Was that like one of those it's electric bikes or something? What is a beta?
no, no, it's a two-stroke. It's a two-stroke 300, but it's a 7/8 frame because I'm tiny and I don't fit on a full-size bike. But I've built it into a race bike. So
Never
it's
even heard of beta before. I was
Yeah,
like,
they're in Supercross now.
I was
So
like, is
that's
that some like weird electric bike that you get from Target? Like,
it's Italian.
ah,
Um, so
yeah. So
yeah, and then
Chinese then or Korean, right?
no,
Basically.
Italian.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
And then I've got Stomping Grounds Bar and Grill, which is also a paying sponsor, one of the places I host my clinics at. And then I'm partnered with Brushy Mountain Motorsports Park,
Hmm.
and I'm currently working on a skincare company right now. Fingers crossed that that goes through. And I'm working with a trainer and a nutritionist as well.
Okay, this is a good one. Rodeo is, I believe this is Gus Rodeo's dad, and like he's national guy, super fast guy. Gus Rodeo is, and this is his dad. So how can you appeal to pro level sponsors when Moto America only focus on a small group and even less teams? And the teams they focus on already have marketing budgets. The little guys need help too.
Oh, like when they're doing the laps and what's televised versus what's
Right.
not. Well, I think Kevin runs 20th overall. I don't think he's ever on camera. That's just
That's
gonna be
not true. I mean, dude, Moto America, his kid rips, right? But
okay.
what he's saying is, the show, so to speak,
Hmm.
is only on the front and never goes past like top 3 dudes. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's some pretty epic battles. um you know Being involved with that attack team, one of our issues was they weren't showing us because Jake was gone so far ahead of everybody. They would focus only on, like, they'd focus on third, fourth, and fifth when Jake was like a year ahead of everybody, you know
Hmm.
so
Well,
yeah.
so
So
one of the
when the
deals.
series that you're
Yeah.
racing in, like, how, like, to compartmentalize this a bit, like the
Yeah.
series that you're racing in only focuses on like the 5%. Like, how do you go after a sponsor for that series when you might be you're in the 6%?
Mm-hmm. How so then one of the big questions that I ask is like, again, why are you doing it? So with Kevin, his whole thing was that he was doing it because it got him away from trouble with the law. He was really struggling with like speeding and
Was
and
he
he got.
That was the kid that was riding race bikes on the street, right?
Yeah, yep, and he almost got
Okay.
caught, right? And he was
Okay.
like, "Oh, I got to take this to the track." So one of the things he does now is he does public speaking. He goes to high schools and he's partnered with the local police department. So he teaches the police first of all how to like maneuver their bikes around, but he also made a deal with them where if they pulled somebody over, they would hand the person they pulled over, instead of writing them a ticket if it was their first offense, they would give them a pamphlet with an adopt a newbie program to Kevin. And that
Yeah.
was his program that got sponsored. It wasn't his
Yeah.
racing in Moto America. It was outside of the industry, but still growing the sport.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
so it's like if there's a part of your story that you can build off of to help grow the industry, and that's where we can build the sport up
Right.
from the clubs up.
Well, Rodeo basically just elaborating what he's saying. It's not just the result stuff. Like, when the series is promoting itself, he's like, no offense, but I'm honestly tired of seeing Rocco and Kayla 24/7, and that's pretty accurate. I mean, Moto America, obviously they were kind of top people, and Kayla Yakov is like the new shiny thing, right?
Mhm.
So of course she's going to get massive coverage, right? But there's a lot of people and there's a lot of different classes. I spoke to a rider at my track day a couple weeks ago, asked me for some advice, and basically what this person's going through is that in the class that she races in, not naming names or anything, the class that she races in, they feature another female rider all the time, but this one's beating that one all the time. And like the struggle is like, how does this person explain that to their sponsors when the sponsors are looking and seeing it happen,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So like, how
Um
would you deal with that? And that kind of
yeah,
goes along with what Rodeo is saying too.
that's okay. Um I'm with the converse. I'm okay. So I never it's a
I mean,
really
you're
good
on the spot,
question.
dude. You wanted to come here.
It's true. It's a really good question. I'm trying to formulate. My words get stuck. I really try not to focus on race results when I present to sponsors.
Okay.
And I really try and ask them for measurable deliverables. Just like we were talking about off the podcast, like you can never guarantee results. Like what happens if you get injured? So you need to figure out good measurables outside of racing to be able to deliver on, and that's how they measure their performance metrics. They're not sponsoring you to win, they're sponsoring you to get them more leads. So did you get them more leads? Like what is your plan on getting them more leads in their business? What is your plan on helping them get their customers to take the first step, or get their customers to engage with a sample or part of their brand? Like, what is the step that they are struggling to get customers to take? And you are that connection. That's how you're engaging with audiences. That's how we get sponsorship outside of results and television, because it's not exposure, because we can't get exposure. We're not good enough to get exposure. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, well, I think what Trevor and Mr. Rodeo are both kind of talking about is like, you've got the big series, right? They're the show, and then the show, they spend a lot of time promoting five people at the let's say five people, but there's a lot of other people that have a good story, and but it's like Trevor's saying, Motor America recycles enough content to save all the turtles in the world, um which is amazing. um like, if that's where you are and you're in that, like, how, as a participant in that, like, how do you deal with that when you're selling something to the sponsors and you can see it, and then the sponsor watches and they see that happening, but happening for basically everybody but the person that you're helping?
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Uh, I personally haven't dealt with race results when it comes to sponsorship. I don't, so I can't talk really well on the topic of like, well, we didn't
Yeah.
perform as well as we wanted, because I really try and focus on the metrics outside of winning, because you can never
Yeah.
guarantee your performance. When it comes to televised things, Alex Streller, who wrote that book, like how to make money in motorsports and give sponsors what they really want, his whole thing was talking about selling spots on your bike for TV time, and in that process, you can actually make a deal with like NBC. You can go over Moto America's head in a sense, and like reach out
Well,
to,
not
I
when
don't.
Moto America is only on their subscription, and the Moto America TV coverage has been kind of like whatever.
Cool. Okay.
But so
So
you
like
have to
with
be like
Supercross.
yeah, like Supercross, yeah. Moto America is tough because they have their app, they do live streaming and stuff, and they put it on YouTube. But
Mhm.
even during the events, when the camera is panning, it's like top three, you know, pretty much.
Yeah, I
Unless
would
it's like
almost.
unless Jake's doing Jake things, then it's like, third through fifth, you know.
So one of the things that I have done, I don't know if this is helpful or not, is you can write to the producer. So if we're talking Moto America specifically, I don't know this for a fact or not for Moto America. This is just speculation. I would write to them and see if you could purchase a 30-second feature.
Hmm.
Um, and then get the sponsor to pay for that outside of your original deal.
Huh.
Just like that podcast thing I was telling you about, where you get these really high profile individuals to come in. You say, I have a guaranteed amount of views for this thing, which makes it worth X amount of dollars. Will you sponsor that in order for that exposure? So if you're going to talk like, we need TV time, if they specifically say they want TV time, say, okay, I'll give you TV time for X amount of dollars. Here's the exact legit value. I called Moto America. I found out how much that viewing is worth.
Game Creek doesn't do side decals for advertising. I don't know who Game Creek is.
I
Is
don't
that
know either.
I don't either. Um what? 250K or so? I don't know what that is either. Moto America owns their own media. They do.
Yeah.
They absolutely do. Um yeah, Bearded Jixer, that thanks, funny guy. He says he says, Dustin, I need a tire sponsorship. Hook a brother up, unless you don't love America and support veterans.
So you can't say no. That right there is an irresistible offer. You can't say no,
Yeah.
otherwise you look
No,
silly.
I could tell him that I love to help everybody, but unfortunately, we can't give anything away, man. So it's just because it costs us money. We're trying to keep going.
Mhm.
Yeah, pro tip, give the TV crew a 12-pack and you'll get a ton of TV in qualifying and practice, like Stephen Shakespeare.
Heck
What?
yeah.
Stephen Shakespeare. Yeah. Yeah, Trevor Watson, he's fun. He's like a cartoon in real life. Um, yeah, and you don't purchase advertising outside of you can't purchase advertising outside of Motor America? I did not know that. That's interesting.
So
I know Motor America does pay premier teams something. Mr. Rodeo might be able to elaborate on that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hearing from these guys that the privateers are getting kind of slapped around a little bit with that
mhm.
stuff. And that's unfortunate because like I was saying, Rodeo's kid was ripping last year in the Twins Cup class. And I guess Photo America outed him today. So I guess the kid's gonna be riding a V2 this year. So um he says not a
Wow.
penny. You didn't get a penny, dude? What the hell?
Wow.
Mr. Rodeo, come on, man. Well, I guess you got to race Superbike, dude. I don't know. I thought they pay premier teams in all the class. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I just know the Superbike thing gets paid. He says
Hmm.
no. He says no. Maybe Super Sport then. I don't, hope so. Um, but yeah, okay. Yeah, this whole sponsor thing, it's not, there's not like a roadmap that we have. So it's interesting to hear different perspectives and, compare the notes between stuff that I know that's worked for me and compare that to what you're saying. Yeah, he says only super. Well, Rodeo, now you're in super sport. So like, take that money, dude. Um, yeah, so basically comparing what you're saying to my experiences, like it sounds you're saying some pretty interesting things that um might work for some people. So tell people kind of how to get a hold of you.
Yeah. So right now I'm writing a book called Don't Say Sponsorship. I'm doing it free plus shipping just for pre-order. So once the pre-order is up, then it'll go up to $25 because I know everybody says like free plus shipping is a scam. So if you feel like that's a scam, then I'll send you the link for $25 instead. But that's just www.don'tsaysponsorship.com. And then for everything else, if you want to check out the clinics, you want to get on the newsletter, anything else is just www.leakymushroom.com. So,
Oh, here's one. Sean Summers. He must have figured out how to comment on YouTube. First of all. He says, so what's your thoughts on followers? Like, what's more important? Is it the number of followers you have, parenthetically by ghost, etc., or who follows you?
it's 100% who follows you, because if you have a million people but that million people don't care about you, if they just talk smack about you behind your back, if they don't want to listen to anything you have to say, then how can you ever properly promote or represent a sponsor? It's 100% who follows you, and they have to be invested in you, and you do that by giving them something, whether it's entertainment, education, or inspiration. It's usually one of those three core things when it comes to social media, and that's how you build the people that are like your die-hard fans.
Yeah, the Instagram thing. Well, I mean, I've been kind of dabbling with everything, right? Like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, everything, right? And Facebook to a certain extent. But the one thing I've noticed is like each of them kind of has their own fans, I guess, and like
Mhm.
something that does well on Instagram may not do well on TikTok, but it might be okay on YouTube. And then I mean, I could post something that I think is like epic, and it'll be like nothing. But then over on another platform, it's like it blows up. So
Yeah.
like I posted I reposted a video on Instagram, and it has like 9 million views. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So we got 1 million views from one of my staff guys, and he's like a big fella, and we called it the redneck tire. Wait, the redneck's pit bull stand spreader. So he's like standing on this pit bull stand in flip flops, yanking on it, and that got 1 million views. So like it's hard to know what's gonna hit, and I think maybe everybody's kind of looking for the everything to hit. Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's hard. It really is hard. I'm actually writing a second book called Audience Secrets, and that's all about building your diehard like fan base. But
Yeah.
it all stems from that whole understanding, like the person you should be talking to is you from 5 years ago. Um, like it should be, because you've gone through some stuff, whether it's how you got onto the track, whether it's like for me, motorsport, like dirt biking helped me figure out like who I was. It was that awkward teen stage where you're switching from teen to early 20s. You know, I was like building engines by myself. It was the first time I was ever like by myself, and dirt bikes gave me the ability to like figure out who I was. So now I help women who are trying to figure out how to work on their own stuff, how to like learn how to ride a dirt bike and be independent and go out and do their own thing. So that's the kind of person that I talk to specifically, and that has grown me a fan base that will follow me regardless of what I do, where I go, or so forth and so on.
Okay. And then let's see here. Yeah, Sean, again, it's like, what are your thoughts on the blue check mark thing?
I think it's a scam. I really do. Because Instagram, when they first did it, it was, I'm just talking Instagram. I don't know about Twitter or any of that other stuff. For Instagram, I actually followed the blue check mark for a while. They gave them special things. You know, if you got the blue check mark, your stuff got boosted. You would have more like spam risk protection and stuff like that. And then they've actually taken it back. So now the blue check mark has the same stuff as no blue check mark, except it's a subscription to Instagram. Like now you're paying Instagram $19.95 a month or some such like that. And it's like, anybody with the blue check mark is doing the exact same stuff as no check marks, and everybody, regardless of if you have the blue check mark or not, has that stupid pop-up on your link in bio now that says look out for spams or look out for scams. Like all external links could be dangerous. Like there's a new feature rolling out, so everybody is going to have that on their link in their bio soon. Doesn't matter if you have the blue check mark or not. And in that case, like, what are you paying it for?
It's because it's a check mark next to your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be like you had to have at least 10,000 followers or something.
You had to be in like published articles. Like you had to be a person of stature, and now you can just buy it. And that to me just takes away from the whole thing. And the fact that you have to upload your government issued ID to Instagram does not make me comfortable. I don't like that.
I don't know if I remember doing that, but I've been on there for a while. I don't remember doing that. I think I had to do something when I got my Instagram account hacked a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got home from Daytona, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, and I ended up having to pay like a white hat hacker to like take it back. The guy like hacked in this dude's Gmail that he reset the password to. It was the whole thing. It was really dirty, but I had to do it because it's the TrackDaz account.
Yeah.
You know? And the Attack Yamaha account and a few other accounts. I run like 5 social media accounts, so it was like every one of my accounts got hacked. So
dang.
I
just wanted to say thank you, Abraham. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, Abraham, that club racer out of the Pacific Northwest. I guess he's buying your book, right?
Thanks, Abraham.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm curious, like if anybody in the chat, you know, afterwards works with Catherine and you know, is successful in getting some sponsorship, dude, I'd love to have that person on and talk about their experience and maybe do another show with you with them.
Heck yeah,
that'd be cool.
I'm here for it.
Because then, you know, like that would definitely raise the level for sure, right? So
100%.
You know, I would say keep doing that. Did you do poll stuff? You did poll stuff? I don't know what is there truth? Jesse Nelson he's like talking smack, I guess. I don't know. Like he's saying random sentences. Yeah, he says I should hire you for social media management. Man, like I think I've got a pretty healthy handle on what we got going on. Just put your Venmo QR code on the side of the fairing. That's there you go.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I have seen that. I thought it was clever.
Yeah, that's a new one. I mean, back in the day, there was a guy at Willow that had these ratty old, like, they look like they came straight out of the movie On Any Sunday leathers, and
Hmm.
on the back in duct tape, he had written your name here. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, he's gonna put a tip jar out during the next autograph sesh. That's good. Well, Catherine, you know what, man? It's been an interesting chat. You have any other sponsors or anything you'd like to thank or shout out to, or you want to give us your last, like, this is, like, shoot for the fences here.
Well, if you haven't yet, check out the free book. The forward is being written by the chief marketing officer of Sherco USA. So we've got in the industry people going through it, reading it, loving it. I've even got people out in Australia who are owning sports teams doing reviews on it right now. So check it out. You can go find it at www.don'tsaysponsorship.com. Otherwise, you can check me out on Instagram at captain.hurley. And for Angelica, as far as rider and business owners in the industry, do both. Do both. Double up. Because why not?
Wow. Okay. Well, good chat. Thanks for giving me some of your time and talking crap with this motorbike dummy in SoCal.
No, I'm here for it. It's always a pleasure and an experience, and I'm just grateful to be here. So thank you.
Well, right on. And I'll put the link to that in the description of the YouTube video later. But thanks for the
Cool.
show, and we're gonna wrap this thing now. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
All
Bye,
right. Cool.
guys.
Okay.